a lot of people there, and we covered a lot of ground. But what kept it all mostly boiled down to as Debbie said, knowledge management. We touched on AI in the meeting. So the idea of today is to go and delve a little deeper into that and look at some of the tools that are actually available that people don't necessarily know are actually available.
Yeah.
Debbie keeps up on that to a large extent. So we thought it was worth going through that and then having a discussion around the pros and cons, and if anybody knows of anything else.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I'll start off. I mean, I think, if we have to rerun this with more and we can refine it, yes, from this, yes.
Sure,
If
absolutely.
anybody's
Yeah.
asking questions, can you do it? Because I'm just seeing my screen at the moment. I'm only on a laptop. I haven't got two screens. So
Yeah. So just don't put your hand up. Don't worry about putting your hand up. Just butt in.
okay. So I'm just going to go a few slides, just so everyone understands my background. I was an engineer a long time ago. I now specialize in the AI area of competency management and knowledge management. A lot of people wouldn't think to go to the competency world to think that you might get some of your AI knowledge management problems solved, but I'll bring that out as we go along. So just in terms of the moment, in terms of the Building Safety Act, there is actually no knowledge management agenda underneath it. We've got this very complex landscape of regulations, guidance, often overlapping or competing, paths which relate to product processes or people, whole lot of competency frameworks, etc. And all of these, some of them are still in process and evolving. We know there's no shortage of evidence that there's still a lack of sector, what I call knowledge and know-how concerning the Building Safety Act, and particularly how to embed it in terms of the why, what, how, when, where, and who of building safety activities across complex supply chains. Don't worry about taking notes. These slides will be shared. So there's no knowledge management agenda from the owners of regulations, guidance, PAS. BSI do have what they call a smartification program around their standards, but and they have reviewed the sort of work that I do, but they're behind the curve in terms of the sort of semantic interoperability you need to make sense of knowledge. And that there's clear demand for people who want to better be able to understand the Building Safety Act in a simple, human manner, if I can put it that way, which they're not able to at the moment. And I would say, I've talked to a few people in HSC who are sort of in AI groups there, or maybe beginning to look at this knowledge challenge, but there doesn't seem to be any kind of vision of what I would call an AI sort of spec-based, knowledge-based approach to solving this, which is the sort of work that we also do in the competency management domain. So this is what I'm calling it. I'm calling it BSA knowledge as a service is what we need, yes, if we want to change the landscape. Does everyone understand that? Anyone challenge that? Anybody put in other challenges that I haven't considered? I just tried to highlight the top ones, yes. I mean, otherwise the list could be endless, but anybody else got any comment on that?
Yes, I'm curious as to understand how, because obviously the BSA has been written in a way to be completely open and non-compliance based. It is supposed to be risk management system based, so it is therefore applicable to any building in any scenario. Yeah. So I'm curious as to how this would work in that arena.
That's a very good question. Can I come back to that after a couple of slides? Yes. But I've made it. Yeah. I understand what you're saying here. Yes, and it's a very good point, and I'll put that in as one of the challenges because I do think that is one. So thank you very much for that. So just to say what sort of knowledge as a service is it's trying to find a way to actually make sense of all of the different knowledge sources to do with the Building Safety Act, be that a regulation, secondary legislation, guidance, associated paths, or competence frameworks, because all of those are needed to help people know why, what, how, but obviously bringing in your your last comment, it's also about when, where, etc. and whom, yes, which is different depending on what the building is, what the risk is, what the context is, yes. So that sort of context aware piece is very important in here. And digitizing knowledge not only about making it easy to access, transforming it, being easier to interpret, to contextualize, but it's also about making it much more accessible, relevant, and actionable. I mean, if you look at certainly in the competency part of this, which is part of the puzzle, anything to do with the competence framework and standard, you might get it in Excel, but most of the time it's a PDF document, completely inert, yes, and not very useful. So the digitizing this should be part of the digitalization agenda. Is it? I don't know. HSC are talking about it. There's a new government group set up to looking at more sort of digitization around knowledge, but it's also very early days around that. And obviously, from an economic point of view, knowledge is actually an information good, and it has certain attributes. And the more it's used and reused and repurposed, the more value you get from it. And once you have digitized it, it makes it very cheap to reproduce and disseminate, etc. Yes. And just to say, when I talk about a knowledge base, I'm not talking about something that is a content or document management system. We've seen there's a lot of repositories, people like Matt Hodges' long repository of documentation. A repository is a good start, but that is not really intelligent enough to allow people to get the kind of know-how that they need out of it. It's much more a repository of structured assertions, definitions, and their logical relationships. I didn't want to go too deep technically into knowledge bases and all the rest. I'll show an example of one, but this is an area that a colleague and I do quite a bit of work in. Yes, so I'm next going to just jump into what's out there at the moment. And obviously most of you are aware of the work that Jarek has been doing in terms of his sort of Miro board, yes, of trying to make sense of this in terms of understanding building safety regulations. You've got another organization called One Engage, who's also tried to look at, how do all of these regulations, the legislation, etc., all link together. So, this is an indication that people are trying to make sense of the landscape to start with. Yes, but again, it doesn't really. It doesn't answer my question of no, why, when, how, whom, etc. Yes, and I think those W questions are very important. We've got Matt Hodges Long, I just mentioned, who's got his sort of resource center, and then there's other things that are going on. There's sort of two chat GPT like tools that are out there. One called Construct AI. Is anybody using that at the moment? Anyone aware of that?
I think so much of this stuff, nobody knows it's out there, do they?
No. So Construct AI, you can go in there and you can query it quite intelligently about the Building Safety Act. As you see, I've put the links below, yes, so people can go and play with that. Wait a minute, go back to my slides. I'm in the process of talking with this lot in terms of how they're going about it. Obviously, there's large language models behind this, but there's also some other things. But there's another one also called Athena, not quite such a nice interface. But again, this one is drawing directly from the HSC API on the government regulations. Yeah. So this one I have tested a lot because I'm partnering with them in an innovation bid. Yes. So that's another one. So that's two chat GPT like things where you can go in and ask, normal human questions about the Building Safety Act. Yeah. And see where you
and are they good? Do they work?
Yeah, they seem to be pretty reliable. Yes, pretty consistent. But for me, that's one thing that be useful for the group to test and socialize, if you see what I mean. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I've only got so much time to do this.
No, absolutely, that's something. Yeah.
But this one, I know with Athena that it is being used by quite a few actors in the built environment. It's also being used in universities to help upskill people around the Building Safety Act, and it's being used in some construction apprenticeships to help them understand the Building Safety Act. So it is actually being used in the sector. But again, who needs to know about this? Why do they need to know about it, etc. So quite a good tool. this is an example of the work that I do. And as you can see, it's come through Innovate type funding, where we take any kind of competence framework or standard and we put it into a competence knowledge base. So you can do various things from it. You can abstract from it. You can compare things. You can associate things. You can see how things linked. It's got very clever semantic capabilities underneath it. No large language models. It's not necessary. We're combining machine learning with different semantic AI technologies and knowledge engineering. But in terms of our landscape here, we've got PAS, we've got 12 different competency working groups. That's going to result in hundreds of competence frameworks, which are often derived from national occupational standards and IFATE occupational standards. There's also standards around sustainability, innovation, digital. There's a new one just come out from AI, from the Turing Institute on AI competencies, and that's going to be customized for the built environment. So, all of these, are coming out. So we have this proliferation. There's no digitalization vision from the Industry Competence Committee, if we even know what they're actually doing. And our approach is we put it all in a competence knowledge base. This competence knowledge base is architected for any system of competence, yes, and that's a very important thing. So we're just finishing the NOS one, and now we can compare national occupational standards in the built environment to IFATE occupational standards, which no one else has been able to achieve yet. So it's a first of its kind. Yeah.
Sorry, could you explain what you mean by that? Would compare.
So if you want to understand, if you want to compare an occupational standard from IFATE, which underpins a lot of the technical education and qualifications, like apprenticeships, but not just apprenticeships. You want to compare it to a national occupational standard. You can compare those you can compare it at the standard level, or you can compare it statement by statement, yes, to see how much overlap or similarity
Right.
there is.
Okay.
Yes, difference, yes. Because a lot of these, if you look at working group 2, for example, nearly all of their competence frameworks, which they're working with CITB on, are all derived from a combination of NOS and IFATE, yes? But there's no traceability of this, and they're making stupid mistakes by taking a duty statement out, which is quite important considering the Building Safety Act is about a duty regime, yes? They're taking duties and putting them in knowledge statements and stupid things like that, yes? Because people don't understand what they're dealing with, yes? You've got people who are playing around in the world of competence who know nothing about competency management and not AI, yes? So those are some of the examples I've sort of come to. And then these are some of the sort of possible actions. Do we push HSC to consider more of a knowledge management approach here? Do we take a task of defining what we think good knowledge management might look like for our audience, yes, and why? Do we socialize these tools and initiatives? Do we collaborate to try and get some kind of sector knowledge sharing platform or knowledge base? As we discussed in the last thing, do we take on a group as a role of experts to try and standardize some interpretations that needed, seek clarity? But if you do that without any knowledge management, we'll just be adding another knowledge source to the chaos.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's kind of the route that we've been taking throughout, isn't it? Trying to standardize.
Yeah, and if we're leading anything, if in this domain, who are we aiming it to benefit and why? So it's not for me to say, what's in scope here, yes or not. Yes, it's just to say what I've found out in the landscape, and is what is sensible. Yes.
I have a question, Debbie, because I think you're right on the money there. So because we often in construction get lost in our little areas of talking to who we're talking to. So yes. I raised my head out of if you like this group and was looking elsewhere, and I noticed that there's quite a few groups looking at the Building Safety Act and trying to do something similar, like UK Build. I've got some groups going on. What's it called? Build UK. I've got that the wrong way around.
Build UK, yes.
They had some things going on. Obviously, the FIS had some things going on.
Yes, I do. Yes, as well. Yeah.
And then the CIO was the other one. They're trying to do something as well. So I think there's a lot of people trying to answer the difficult questions. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone's got the answers yet, like you rightly point out. So I still think there's a lot of value in this group. But it's I suppose, like you say, isn't it? It's understanding the landscape, and then where does this objective sit within that, and what area are we fulfilling that the others aren't, I suppose, which is quite a difficult question to answer.
It is. I mean, I'm aware of this is useful. I can add it, and I'm aware of some of the stuff that Build UK do. I work with FIS, yes, so I can add that back in. What specifically around CIOB? I mean, I have seen they've been doing quite a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, but I haven't seen anything that I would call is anything intelligence on the knowledge side of the Building Safety Act from them.
Well, I suppose you've hit the nail on the head there again. I mean, using the word intelligent.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, look, I've been invited to Building Safety Act guidance with the CIOB, so they're running a level of training. I wouldn't necessarily know that it's intelligent. I mean, similarly with the FIS. I mean, Ian McElwee is absolutely phenomenal individual.
He is. Yes.
But yeah, again, I don't know what he presents is intelligent, obviously, and what he delivers is backed by his intelligence. But maybe the gap is that there isn't necessarily a group. Although I think that the one that I think is creating a group is Build UK. I haven't got any more details than that, but I believe they're creating like they haven't used the words that I would use, which is like a safe area for experts to share honestly. They haven't sort of used those words, but
no, but they do have their publications that they bring out with their updates. Yes, so I'll add in some of that to the deck. Yes, and some of the stuff that's going on training wise. I wasn't going to concentrate too much on training because everyone thinks training is a solution without actually sorting the knowledge management issue out at the moment. I mean, you can't prove that most of the training programs are directly inferred or related or driven from the acts, yes, or guidance, and that's what we need. Yes, so
I think there's still real value in having an expert, a group of experts that can be questioned and share knowledge. I still think there's a gap in the market there. I really do. But like I say, I just had a look around and I noticed those three that were doing it or doing something.
And then I think related to it, you have these AI groups. There's people like James Bowles, yes, from 4D, who's set up a sort of AI group in the built environment. HSC, I've just spoken to their guy who's leading the AI group. So there's various people who are in the AI group, but they seem to be just open exploratory things, yes. And I keep saying to them, this is a really good thing to concentrate on, yes. It seems, and a lot of them weren't aware of some of those Chat GPT like tools that I've put out there, yes. And the other thing is there's also stuff that's going on from Innovate, yes, which I can't say yet, but there may be some Innovate-led initiative around sort of more AI and knowledge management, which wouldn't just be construction, but have any of you heard of the Bridge AI program? No, you see again. So Bridge AI is an Innovate and UKRAI-led initiative. I sit on the advisory board, and the 4 target sectors include construction. So there's a lot of money going in to AI in the built environment, and there's funding. There's free upskilling as well around AI. So they also have a skills and talent group. So I'm trying to get them to do a knowledge group, yes, a knowledge management AI group. So that might be useful if we do, because it might provide us with some funding. Because I think it's all very well what we can do, but if we could derive some funding to prove some of this is possible, then I think it's sensible, yeah. So who was the gentleman who raised the risk question, risk system based?
Neil.
Is he gone? Is he there?
It was
Neil?
I.
Yeah.
No,
oh, sorry, Neil. Yeah. Sorry. So how would that, in your view, change what's needed from managing all of these knowledge sources to do with the Building Safety Act intelligently?
So
as a need, not as a solution, as a need, if you don't mind.
Yeah, as a need, from a client, I can. It's probably best to explain where I think the two, where what you just talked me through, I think would be useful as a client, and then where the gap would be as me being trying to purchase it in. So,
Fantastic.
as a client, I think I would find the things you've just talked to effectively being able to put into an AI. Do I need to register my building? Something like that, and put the measurements in of the building, or even just a photograph or whatever. I can imagine that being useful. So that would replace solicitors or potentially engineers. The issue about the risk management system part of it is the Building Safety Act is just silent on it, other than to require one, and then the guidance says you should be applying something like 45,001 or 9997. Now that is so open to the variables within size of organization. So an AI would need to understand what the different expectations from a right to manage one Ma and Pa have one building compared to a Sanctuary or a Clarion who have got dozens of the bloody things.
Got you.
And the organizational complexity that entails, the procurement complexity that happens in the social housing sector versus the private sector, and all those sorts of multifaceted pieces that are so dependent on hundreds of variables. I could understand how AI would be amazing for that, but none of it's prescribed in the BSA. If the focus is on the BSA and subsequent regulations and guidance, then there would be a gap there. Not to say, the whole point of the systemic approach is to add a human in there to weigh risks and whatnot. It's not necessarily to say that this isn't incredibly valuable. I think it would, to be able to replace solicitors would be immensely valuable.
Well, I mean, if you follow what's going on with AI in the legal section, it's moving so fast. It's enormous. Already, more and more cases are just being dealt with by AI. So, it is there. I mean, in some ways, because the regulations are designed as they are as the regulations, doing this in the competence area around all of these wretched paths and competence frameworks and standards is easier to do, because you can get to being action this, if you see what I mean. As a starting point is an easier point to do it. But equally, we have also taken other ISO standards and all the rest and extracted those using AI quite successfully, and been very clear about what's an actual requirement or what's a possibility. So there are ways of doing this. And I know certainly there's some good lessons to be learned from work that's going on around digitizing planning, and planning and compliance. So
when you say we
I have an AI partner called Interlatis. Sorry, so we've been playing around with this stuff for about 10 years. So that there are other domains we can bring in that have learned some lessons in this. So but anyway, but at the moment, I think even if we could make more available tools like those chat GPT ones, with perhaps some more refinement or testing of them, that could be helpful, as a minimum.
Because I didn't introduce myself, but I'm Neil from Orbit Housing. So we've got 45,000 properties, 25 HRB, so not massive, but enough skin in the game to feel the pain. There are questions around. So for another classic example would be, do I need to run through building control for this particular situation? Now it raises another point that was striking me in the head as you were talking, is that I'm not entirely sure the BSR knows
doesn't
the
sound
answers
like it
to
from
some
the
of these. Well, I speak to them. I'm in the room with them because I'm still assisting back on the golden thread guidance. So I'm helping them write some of that, and it's pretty clear that there are certain facets that they haven't made decisions on, and they're in learning mode just as much as we are.
But but then the knowledge management system has to say, what's available is this. Yeah. Then it's up to human. At the end of the day, this isn't taking away human decision making. Yes. Or or people doing it. If there's not an exact answer to the question, then you give it a low confidence score. That's what we do in the competence domain. Yes, depending on the quality of the knowledge source, you use a confidence index as a proxy. Yes. So you get the result saying, well, this is level 2. Yes. So immediately.
That wasn't where my mind was going. My mind was going to, bloody hell, this would be useful for the regulator to literally to say, are there any low confidence? What are our low confidence confluences across all of this? And it almost gives them a gap analysis of where they haven't given enough guidance, and then they can judiciously go through it and say, actually, we don't want to give guidance there because that is a management system thing, or we haven't given enough information for people to actually apply to building control.
Yes.
Because unfortunately we had a fire in one of our buildings. We're one of the first in the country, if not the first in the country, to apply for building control to do something major to our building, and we found that
interesting.
They haven't actually got anything. They've had to invent on the back foot a template for us, and it's not quite there yet. So a tool for them, when we were talking about clients, the BSR themselves might be chomping at the bit for something like this.
Yeah. Well, I tried to get in touch with I have a contact, again, he's another senior guy at Innovate, who's been talking with HSC on them taking a kind of knowledge management approach. Yes, but I couldn't get hold of him this morning to get an update. But I have fed in some of this thinking to them. Yes, I haven't shared any sort of detailed work we've got because I want some IP protection before I do, if you know what I mean.
In that example that Neil had there, though, right, is like, it's great to have the IP and the tools that we're discussing, but also if you've got an expert group, we could share ideas. So like in your example, Neil, like, so my previous role, I owned the Golden Thread at a tier 1 main contractor, and so I built up the process by which we would develop that Golden Thread, and using expert consultants in building safety regulations, we would then build up what do we need for each one of those buildings, what do we need in terms of storage, what do we need to keep for 15 or 30 years, the whole process that we built up around that. When we checked that with the BSR, they weren't, or the people we spoke to anyway, weren't necessarily ready to actually interpret or understand what we were giving to them. But what if we had like as well as the tools that we're talking about, but an actual knowledge group? It could be, hey, has anyone had this experience? What do you do? And I'd say, hey, Neil, we've done the same. So what we did is obviously created the capture, if you like, method, so that we captured enough that was cost effective to still delivering the project, but protected us long term, just in case when the building regulators catch up, they check and they go, you guys have got everything in the background. So that might be just as valuable as a tool, if that makes sense.
Well, it is, because I mean, if you're doing an audit, if the fact that you've used some tools that are available and you've used an expert group, well, you've tried hard to answer, you've tried hard to do the job and answer the question. Yes. And that's traceable. Yes. Which I think is important. Well, I'll take it as an action to try and get an update if I can, from this contact around what HSC are doing or looking at. Yes. So I don't know whether it's going to go under this AI group they have already, or whether they're setting up a separate group or initiative. Yes. But I mean, certainly at last, this sort of AI knowledge management piece is coming to the fore. Yeah. I've been waiting for it to sort of get to the table, but it's coming. Yeah. So
once you've got all the protections and everything you need, that there is, I mean, just to your point, Jack, for my sins, I chair the National Housing Federation's National Building Safety Group, rather long title, that has I don't know, probably 24 of the larger housing associations knocking about the place, messing around with building safety these days. I'm more than happy to bring you along to talk about this thought process if you're
fine.
if you're in that market.
I mean, I've done
Debbie,
some work with Direct Works, and I did do a big social housing project. Was it last year? It finished sort of middle of last year, where we worked with 6 housing associations, and we put in a competency management and compliance platform. Yeah, jolly bloody hard work is all I can say. I spent more of my time educating people about what competence was. Yes, so and competence and competency to comply. So yes, it was not an easy process. But you know, if you can make the heavy lifting easier for these people, yes, if you can just say to people, okay, we know in social housing you have these type of operatives, they do 71 tasks. Okay, just update their competency profiles and context of those tasks with anything that they have to meet in terms of these for all of these array of competency frameworks. Press the button. That's what they need. They don't need any more than do that. Yes, just give me what people do, give me the context, you tell me what the right profile is. That's what we need to do. It needs to be as simple as that, and that's possible now. Yeah, so so you know, if you don't make it easy, if it's more heavy lifting in that, people haven't got time to go through all of these frameworks and then find, oh well, actually that's already I've already got people who qualified in that because they've done that apprenticeship. Yes, because you haven't made it clear. It's just a mess. It's absolutely shocking. And as for the industry competence committee, God knows what they're doing. I mean, I really have no clue in this domain.
Just one more steer for you, Debbie. On
Thank you.
There is another organisation that's springing to mind at the moment called, I don't know whether you've come across them, the Compliance Workbook. They've got an interesting approach to competence. They're mostly focused on old school compliance stuff around electrical safety, gas checks, and all that sort of stuff. But what they do is they have a way of reading all the certificates, so it's effectively just a PDF reader. And what it does is it compares it to the existing standards to see whether the readings that you're getting on, you know, whether the ohms are matched the Z reading and all the random stuff that electricians.
Oh yes, I know the guy behind that. What's his name? Yes, I know him. I've talked to him. Yes. No, I am aware of that. Yes. I would say what he does is very complementary to what we do. It's not competing. Yes, but yeah, good. You know, no, I've been meaning to catch up with him. No, I know exactly who you mean. Yes.
I was just thinking that exact word, it complements what you're doing perfectly, because what you're looking at here is the skills and knowledge part, and he's looking at the experience and behavior part.
Oh, we deal with both. I mean, we don't just deal with the knowledge side. We can actually deal with all the data side. We also deal with voice and dialogue. Okay. Yeah, you know, you're not going to get a 59-year-old roofer giving you a CV. Yeah, but if you ask him what he's done, where he's done it, you know, all the rest. So we've done that before. We can mine voice data as well. You know, so I've just been showing you the knowledge side. We also deal with all of the unstructured data side. We can take any source of unstructured data about a person, but also we deal with things like we profile a product, a process, a project, a team, a person, a job, a role. It's much broader. So if we know a product does this, we can infer what competencies are related to a product. So it's much broader than just, you know, knowledge, skills, and behaviors and experience. Yes, I mean we actually look at 13 dimensions of competence, not just the ones they're doing. Yes, and we take eight perspectives to competency management. You know.
Okay, you're better. All right, you can stop now.
No, only because we've been doing this for a long time, 10 years. Yeah, and a lot of it's been derived from other sectors like oil and gas, military. You know, where I did a lot of my hard training, doing lots of big military projects. I'm not a military person, but I have worked in that environment a lot. So yeah, but I think that I think the thing is actually there's more going on in the landscape than people realize, but we haven't got any way of bringing it together. Yes, of bringing the best parts and putting it together as what I would call a sort of, you know, a set of digital utilities which can help people, which is what's needed. And there's no sort of, you know, because no one's got the time or the effort to do all of this. Yes. So, Richard, you still there?
I most certainly am still
Yeah,
here. I've been
I mean, I think this has
avidly
been. I'm
listening.
very glad that we've had this because I think it's useful. I mean, I think I will take the slides I've got and I'd like to add in some of the points that have been made, some of the other things that we know are going on. Yes, just to sort of
Yeah,
broaden it out, and
I
then we
think
can,
it's been very valuable, definitely.
and then we can share it, and then if we feel that we want to run it with a bigger group,
Yeah,
we do it. Yes, it would
I
also
think
be
possibly
useful just
it
to
would be.
see if
Can I
George
just?
has anything else coming out, anybody else has anything that they think they've heard at the building safety regulator event, which I think was yesterday. I couldn't go. I'm not in the country at the moment. I'm in another country. So I'd be keen to know if anything was even raised in this domain in that event yesterday. I
Yeah.
suspect not. I couldn't see it on the agenda, but
Let me just quickly ask Will and Jeremy. Have you got any points you'd like to make on this?
yes. Will.
Nothing from me really. I've just been making some notes in the background there. I appreciate we said the slides are going to be sent out, and I've been having a look at some of these tools.
Good.
Yeah, no, it's all new to me. I'm absolutely fascinated by some of this stuff, and
Where
I
are
agree
you from, Will?
So I'm joining from Adelaide. We are a system safety consultancy, so we help train people up to make safety cases, and we have a software tool that people use to compile and to maintain their cases going forwards. So I agree with what we said at the start about sort of BSA knowledge, and that really people are still in the dark on this, and the thing that interested me at the conference was, understanding where we fit into the context. Now, this regime's been in place for, or the law got passed 2 years ago, right?
Yes.
It's slowly coming into force in reality, but this is a couple of years now, and people are still murky, confused about their duties, their responsibilities, mixed messaging. I think some people were a bit disappointed with the conference. They wanted a bit more tangible, sort of hard recommendations.
I offered to speak and show them something tangible.
A lot of it was quite woolly. I mean, the one bit that got a lot of people's attention was that the golden thread standard is going to be published next month, which a lot of people were happy to hear, because people have been waiting for that for a long time. But yeah, a lot of it was still sort of quite woolly, saying, it's an ongoing, it's a moving feast, all this sort of stuff. The safety case standard is not going to be published, basically. There's some recommendations. There's a safety case toolkit, they're calling it. But the idea of having, this is what a good safety case looks like for housing, that's not forthcoming. So yeah, I think anything that's going to help people with this is definitely of interest. And I mean, I think as a team, we're going to have to look into these sorts of AI tools and help people sort of demystify it a little bit. Yeah, so thank you. It's really interesting.
Is the golden thread standard going to be a BSI standard or a PAS or what?
It might be. I've probably got more knowledge on it than you will, because I'm helping write it. So
fire away. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
It's going to be. It's effectively published by the Construction Leadership Council,
CLC.
But we've written it in conjunction with the BSR and DLUC, so they've been in all of our sessions, giving us a steer here and there, and then we've been giving them a steer. It's quite a collective bit of work. It's not going to be as granular as people are craving, but it's more granular than anything they've had before. And the idea is that it is a start of the 10. It will be an iterative process where we keep going back.
It's a step in the right direction, basically, but not much more than that.
I think it gives people, from the conversations I have with people that haven't really thought about the golden thread and starting tackling, it gives them a really good steer. Those people, they'll find it very useful. For people like, that have been on the BIM and you guys, you'll probably think this is trying to teach a set of 5-year-olds on what to do. Part of the driver for us writing it was there are a lot of when I mentioned the MAR and PAR bands out there, there are a lot of right to manage directors and everything that are currently being ripped off by a lot of consultants. That do really need this there. So the way I've described it in the session, and I think it's an analogy that works, is they are trying to fly a 747, and we've sort of written the guide for the people that are trying to fly a 747 airplane. But there are people out there like me that are trying to fly a fleet of 747s, and the challenge is much more difficult. And we've probably written it for about 25% of it will be useful to the fleet flyers, but it will be very useful for someone who's just got a single plane they're trying to keep in the air.
Yeah.
And that's why it'll be reiterative and it'll keep getting cycled through and continuously improved.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting.
Jeremy, have you got anything you want to add?
Hi, Richard. Yeah, hi, group. Not really, to be honest, Richard. Obviously, I picked up on a few conversations a little while back. I've been involved on the previous fire door working groups. And then recently, obviously, taking a lot of interest in the Building Safety Act, and not a long time ago, kind of picked up on a few conversations and the kind of want to be able to share the information so everyone gets what they need to make buildings safer. So I kind of set up a little group on LinkedIn, which kind of gathered a bit of momentum. And I know BIM4Housing kindly kind of put on a working group session as well, which I kind of brought people to the table on that, really. So I was just intrigued just to listen in, really, and thank you for all the conversation, which I can kind of take back, and hopefully any kind of AI sort of Building Safety Act knowledge tools. I think it's great. So we will get consistency.
Yeah, I think even if we had a kind of, map of some kind of who's doing what in AI, around this domain would be helpful, so people know who to go and talk to, who's doing what, because often it can be better to sort of collaborate with somebody who's got something that is going to help you do some of the heavy lifting to start with, or complements what you're doing.
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with standing on the shoulders of giants, right?
No. So I think a lot of people just partly that there is more there than that's out there. And again, when I've spoken to people either at Innovate or or Bridge AI, and they think they're all surprised by this, because basically they think the built environment is it has very low AI adoption, and it does compared to other sectors, but actually there is the stuff going around project management and all the rest is there's some areas that are moving quite fast, and there's others that aren't. So good. Well, I'm not sure that we need too much longer. I know it's a bit of a shorter session, but with less people you get through things, and I didn't want to sort of get into anything too deep, without us deciding what we want to do, really.
Well, as you said, I think it's been very valuable, because I think it's sort of honed the next meeting, hasn't it, Debbie? You've had a lot of good input. We've had a lot of very good input. But I definitely think it's worth doing to the larger group.
Okay.
Very, very definitely. What I wanted to say is, for any that aren't aware, we've set up a new group, organisation, whatever you want to call it, called BIM in Asset Management, which is similar to BIM4Housing. The only difference being is that it covers across all sectors. We had a first meeting, sort of launch meeting, on Monday, and we've got our next meeting on the 17th of June. Invites will be going out probably today, so keep an eye out for that. And if you're involved in asset management or use asset information, come along. It was a very, very lively session on Monday, and it promises to be a very exciting grouping. We've already set up 3 work streams, one in business case, one in digital, and one in interoperability. And Jack, who's on this call, is one of the leaders of the interoperability work stream. So keep an eye out for those, and please do come along. As far as this session goes, I'm very, very pleased we actually carried on with it, and I think it's been very useful to all of us, but also, as I say, in terms of following it up and going into a bit more depth with the wider group.
Okay. Well, I'm going to sort of update the slides and then I'll share them. Yeah. And then if I've missed anything anyone can say or add it to it. Yes. And then we've got a
Brilliant.
deck that we can take forward. Yes.
Fantastic.
Great. Fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you very much,
Brilliant.
everyone, for your time.
Excellent.
nice to meet
Cheers,
you.
guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Yes.